The Impossible Planet. Chapter 2. The Signal. Thievel Sol Exploration Team. May 27th, 2148. Carbon, Silicon's enigmatic elder. For as long as my people have categorized materials into elements, we have known of this one's strange duality. Older than silicon in stellar birth, and richer in its number of possible bondings with other elements, yet far less stable. Where silicon arranges itself into ordered chains and lattices that endure for eons, carbon can hold no such form. To miners on E-Rock, it is an impurity, clinging to more valuable substances like a parasite. Though prized by engineers for the carbides and diamonds it can be used to create, carbon in its purest form is unstable at best. Even still, hundreds of years before my people would achieve superluminal travel, a biochemist proposed that this element could in theory be the backbone of life on other worlds. The carbon life hypothesis was popular in its time and even now maintains some fringe proponents. However, when one presents the scientific community with something to sink their mandibles into, they must be prepared to see it torn apart. In my Basics of Astrobiology class, one of our assignments was to review 2 articles, one written in favor of the carbon life hypothesis and one opposed to it. As it turns out, the closer one gets to the modern day, the more difficult it becomes to find the former. The true death blow for carbon life in mainstream astrobiology came from the Ruvix experiment, where Gifford cristocytes, our smallest unit of living material, were reconstructed using carbon-based molecules. The first issue was that the cells could not function in anything resembling a reasonable temperature. At room temperature, 470 degrees Celsius, they boiled and melted, but in freezing conditions their metabolism was too slow. The greatest issue, however, was how unstable they were. Even using exotic metabolism to generate more energy, the cells almost immediately mutated to the point of incoherence with the greater whole. Within days, the cristocyte clusters tore themselves apart with their own unchecked growth. Carbon life? I chittered quietly, staring down at our readings of the planet as though willing them to start making sense so that I wouldn't have to consider the bizarre impossibility placed before me. Surely you jest, Ebsu. You see all these hot spots? Continued our xenobiologist, their manipulator claws tapping the screen in various locations. At first I thought they might be volcanic vents, but the spacing is all wrong. They look like cities, and the signal traffic matches that hypothesis. That's not possible, I coughed, clinging to my education in the face of something that seemed to defy all logic. Carbon microbes maybe, but the cancer problem alone would prevent them from developing past that point, not even to mention the metabolic rates in this temperature. Gede's carapace lit up with signals of curiosity mixed with frustration as they turned away from their station to face me directly. With all due respect, sir, there's really only one way to say for certain. First Contact Protocol states that all evidence of advanced civilization must be immediately investigated upon discovery. Throughout the bridge, my ensuing silence was taken by the crew as permission to speculate and debate amongst themselves. If there really are intelligent life forms down there, think of what the implications could be for the field of biology as a whole, Ebsu chittered excitedly, their enthusiasm echoed by other crew members. This could be the most important scientific discovery since faster-than-light travel. Our geologist, Rakel, meanwhile, began to pace nervously, their many legs clacking rhythmically against the floor behind me. I'm not so sure that's a good idea, they concluded grimly, their carapace dulled by an unease they were clearly attempting to conceal. These life forms might not be anything like what we know of. Who's to say how their minds work? We should leave this planet alone for now. Make contact once we have a fleet in orbit. Behind Rakel, other crew members spoke up in solidarity with the geologist's assessment. Our first contact procedures were created with normal life forms in mind. Would the concepts we were supposed to employ even apply here? A fleet? Are you listening to yourself? Gede chittered incredulously, regarding our geologist as though they had just suggested flying us into a star. Even if they were hostile, we could easily retreat and come back later in force. I'm just saying that once we send the contact signal, there's no going back. Opinions pinged back and forth across the bridge as voices for and against making contact coalesced into 2 distinct masses, each urging me to make the call in their favor. I believe Rakel is correct, I finally concluded after a long stretch of debate amongst my crew. It would be wise of us to consult the Grand Executive before taking action. But Thievel, sir, interrupted Ebsu, his manipulator claws clacking together anxiously. If we waste time returning to Gifford space without complete data on the system, then they might have to send another survey team before moving to colonize. We'd all be risking our claims to Vulca, and that's assuming that the Yovi or Funak don't snatch it up first. The xenobiologist was right, of course. I hated that. Surrendering a claim to such a beautiful planet as Vulca would be foolish. In the mere hours since our discovery of the Paradise Planet, I'd already grown rather attached to the notion of becoming a colony lord, living lavishly and wielding the respect seldom given to the captains of survey vessels. Even still, as I looked upon the readings on our screens that sang of life, a feeling of deep unease swirled within me. Suddenly, Rakel's side had gone quiet, leaving behind only the voices of assent. None of them wanted to give up their rightful claims to Vulca. If I, as their captain, made a decision resulting in such a monumental loss, then they would never allow me to live it down. Fine, I coughed, silicate dust exiting my mouth before quickly disappearing into the ship's ventilation. We will send a contact signal, the bare minimum required. If nobody responds, we chalk this up to a geological phenomenon and mark it for later study. Either way, our claims to Vulca remain intact. Nobody spoke up to object as Geed carefully calibrated the contact signal to play on every detected wavelength. If nothing else, I was grateful that whatever might have lived down there had discovered broadcast technology. If they hadn't, then contact protocol was to suit up and go down ourselves. Then again, if they had remained quiet, then we wouldn't have had to contact them in the first place. The contact signal itself was a simple, elegant thing. A sequence of prime numbers between 1 and 81, followed by a hydrogen line frequency of 1420 MHz for 9 seconds. After that, the signal repeats. Not only was a prime number sequence unheard of in the realm of natural radio phenomena, but any civilization with radios would easily be able to recognize it. With the signal broadcasting on every channel, all that was left was to wait. Seconds crawled by at the pace of hours as the crew waited in near total silence. When 15 minutes passed with no response, Rakel visibly relaxed along with much of the other crew. Ebsu, meanwhile, appeared disheartened, his carapace glowing cold. After another half hour, the relief was beginning to flow over me like a calming bath of molten lead. I was right, I thought. There was nothing alive down there, there couldn't be, and we'd all gotten worked up for nothing. Even still, protocol was to send the signal for at least 1 hour, so we continued to wait. Then, at the 49-minute mark, we began to receive signals back. Prime numbers between 82 and 162, followed by a helium line frequency, as clean a mandible rub as ever there was. Amidst the tenuous silence, reactions from my crew bubbled to the surface like air pockets in magma, starting with quiet, scattered hisses before slowly intensifying to the point of pandemonium. Carapaces lit up in dizzying spectrums of color, confusion, fear, excitement. "I can't believe it!" Ebsu chittered joyously, their mandibles clicking together in a gesture of intense want. "There really is civilization down there." "Or something like it," Rakel added ominously, having abandoned their station to position themselves directly behind me. "I hope you know what you're doing, Captain, because whoever's down there, they know we're here now." Johann Edgar, American NSA Director. May 27, 2148. I was on my way to work when the signal first came on over my car's radio. A string of sharp metallic beeps drowned out the repetitive drawl of some radio show that had been on when I turned the key. The broadcast was deliberate, patterned, but nothing like Morse or any other code I knew of. At first I thought the station was getting jammed by something, so I reached for my car's radio knob and turned to another frequency, only to be faced with the same inexplicable noise. Then I realized it wasn't just my radio. In the next lane over, a tubby trucker was leaning over his dashboard, staring at it like it had come alive. Every station, every channel blared that same relentless pulse. Less than 2 minutes later, my phone buzzed in my pocket. No caller ID, but I still knew exactly who it was. Taking a sip of the coffee I'd bought 10 minutes prior at a donut shop drive-thru, I fished the phone out of my jeans and answered the call. "I'm Mr. President." Traffic got bad not long after the signal came on. It was like every warm body in America suddenly realized it had somewhere better to be. My 30-minute commute had doubled into an hour, every 10 minutes or so punctuated by another call seeding me information, while simultaneously demanding to know what the hell was happening, as if I had a clue. It had been a cool summer morning, but I was already sweating by the time I finally arrived at the office. Adjusting my tie as I rushed past security and made my way into the briefing room, I arrived just in time to hear my second-in-command, Evan, chewing out the director of SETI. "Your people had absolutely zero authority to send that signal," he shouted. the rage in this voice sufficient to make everyone in the office not named Johann shrivel into themselves. The NSA director just got here, but I'm not done with you, understand? There was a muffled voice on the other end right before Evan disconnected the call. What do we know? I demanded, peering around the room as I waited for someone to fill in the blanks. Evan, of course, was first to speak up. Approximately 70 minutes ago, a signal started broadcasting over every radio station in America, ones from Alaska, Puerto Rico, and Hawaii included. It's a bunch of prime numbers followed by a hydrogen line frequency. Think the signal might be Russian? I asked, running the possibilities through my mind at speed so fast I could barely wrap my head around a thought before it was replaced by the next. Across the table, Agent Miller shook her head. I just got off the phone with the Kremlin's men. They wanted to know if it was us. It's not Chinese either, added Agent Adams, eliminating my next best guess before I even had the opportunity to make it. Whatever it is, it's already all over social media, interjected Evan, pulling up a seemingly endless stream of clips and text plucked from every major platform on the planet. Returning my attention to Evan, I gestured with my pointer finger toward the phone he'd hung up not long before. Call back Director Lenfield. Said he has some of the best radio receivers in the world, and we need the data that's on them. Immediately, Evan picked up the phone and tapped on the application to open recent calls, clicking the icon at the top and setting it to speaker mode. The phone rang once. Twice. Hello? Director Lenfield's voice crackled out into the room, sounding out a combination of defeat and exhaustion. Lenfield, this is National Security Agency Director Johann Edgar. My associate, Deputy Director Evan Scott, spoke with you already. Lenfield didn't say anything for a second, though in the background I could hear voices that sounded like they were coming from a television. Every news station in America, hell, probably the rest of the world as well, was going on non-stop about the signal. Do you need anything? Lenfield asked, sounding distracted. What can you tell me about that signal? I replied, my tone more to the tune of a command than a question. We're triangulating it now, confided Lenfield before hesitating. What I can tell you this instant is that it matches up with everything we at SETI have been looking for since our founding. Leaning back in my seat in an effort to convince myself this wasn't the most batshit day of my life, I sighed heavily before taking a sip of my now cold coffee. Go on. The prime numbers, the hydrogen frequency, I don't think this signal is terrestrial in origin. What are you talking about? A satellite? No, Lenfield replied, the voices of the television suddenly cutting off. I'm saying that we've determined with reasonable certainty that this is an artificial extraterrestrial signal. It took all my willpower not to scream at him. Let me get this straight, I growled, leaning in closer to the phone so that my voice would be loud and clear. You received a signal that you think might be extraterrestrial and you fucking responded to it? You didn't ask the president first? You didn't ask anyone? Again, there was silence. I didn't authorize it, Director Lenfield replied, stone cold in the face of my outburst. One of my employees composed the signal and was going to wait for approval, but that transmitter hasn't been used in 2 decades and it glitched. What are we looking at for the triangulation? I demanded, staring into the screen with enough intent to hopefully make Lenfield on the other end start sweating as hard as I was. If it really is alien, we're probably looking at a signal from light years away, Lenfield replied. What's that in months? I sighed, still wrestling with the notion that I'd have to be the one debriefing the president on this. Light years are a measure of distance, not, Lenfield began to explain before suddenly cutting off. That can't be right. What can't? Demanded Evan, echoing the question that was already on the tip of my tongue. The signal, it's coming from a high Earth orbit. I'm adjusting our telescopes to, oh my God. What? I shouted. Lenfield hung up, and 6 minutes later we received the data I had demanded from him, along with a single attached image. A ship.